Hello, everyone. My name is Jared, and this is
Does This Work? A comedy podcast.
I talk to comedians at every level, from entry-level open micers to professional-level comedians. Now, I am no professional comedian, but I am a huge comedy nerd. I love comedy, I love talking about comedy, and I love being taught about comedy, which is why it's absolutely ideal and perfect that my first guest ever is a world-renowned writer, performer, and teacher. He has performed over 40 festivals around the world, including 3 solo shows at Just for Laughs in Montreal. The Guardian called him the best comedian you've never seen. Jim Jeffries said, no one knows more about comedy than him. Ricky Gervais said this is one of the smartest comedians I've ever seen. He's also written a book called Finding Your Comic Genius, which breaks down comedy, writing, and joke analysis and helps you discover your own voice as a comedian. Without further ado, Adam Bloom,
Hello.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was a very long intro. I apologise.
None of it was true. I think you got one bit right.
Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being my first guest ever because it's huge. I want to talk to you a lot about comedy, but I want to rewind. And I want to, before the acclaim and the writing gigs and the stand-up, I want to talk about, before all that, and ask the question that I'm going to ask everyone, which is, why comedy?
I wanted to be a comedian when I was 9. I was a funny kid at class, mucking around. 4 years old, I remember doing something I won't bore you with, but I realised that it was obvious to me, but everyone else found it funny, which made me realise, okay, I see things differently, which is a good start. And then 23 years old, just before my 23rd birthday, I got sacked from a bartending job for backchatting my manager. We didn't get on. He was rude to me. I was very rude back. Lost my job, went home, said to my girlfriend, I've just lost my job. She went, I've got some more bad news, and dumped me. So that wasn't a good day. And then I was sitting around going, I've got literally nothing in my diary for the rest of my life. And then I went, do stand-up. And it was a lightning bolt. That moment, it was just, my brain just, it all clicked into place. I can remember the moment, it just, like, clearly, that's the thing to do. Yeah. Bear in mind, 10 seconds before that moment, wasn't even in my consciousness. And my brain just went, you know that thing you wanted to do since you were 9? Well, you're free now to do it.
Yeah.
So I went to watch comedy, and then I saw Harry Hill, who's one of my heroes, and then I went, okay, that's it. I have to now. So I was sniffing around going, oh, that's my life moment. And then I saw him and went, okay, no more mucking around. This is it. So I booked an open spot in. Was very surprised to see that you don't need an equity card, which is an actor's, like a license to perform. And you don't have to wait months to get up there. They said 2 weeks time, I think 3 weeks time you can get up. Book me in. Once it's booked in, anyone listening to this, once it's booked in, it's happening. Now you can go, yeah, but you can cancel, but then you really lose dignity. If you let yourself down by cancelling an appointment to change your life, then you're really not being good to yourself. Whereas if you're thinking about it, there's no moment where it's happening. So if you go, it's in my diary, that's an anchor that goes, it's happening. And of course you can cancel, but I think cancelling is such a weak thing to do when you've committed to doing something for the first time. You've got to do it. So anyone listening to this, book your first gig in and then do the work between now and then, because you'll find that what's that phrase, a job fills the allotted time? Have you heard that phrase? Like if you've got 6 months to write 100 words, you'll do it gradually. If you've got a day to do it, you'll do it immediately.
Yeah.
And if you've got an hour to do it, you'll still do it immediately. Yeah. So that thing about going, right, I'm not ready yet. People make excuses. Oh, my wife just had a baby. Because that's kind of excuse, but a year down the line, you've got no excuse.
Yeah.
So there's always that thing of making excuses, which is basically a lying to yourself because you don't want to do it, or you're scared of doing it. And then you book it in, and then you use that time to make yourself ready. And so I did that, and my first gig went well. My 6th gig was an absolute disaster, but because I had 5 good gigs, I had the belief that I could do this. So that made me get back up again.
So the first one was enough for you to go, that did well enough that I'm going to keep going?
Yeah, I often wonder, because if I'd had the 6th gig first, part of me likes to believe that the drive in me would get up again, but you never know. All I know is the first one went very well, the next 4 went reasonably well, and the 6th one was awful, but I had that kind of hunger, like I was like, I'm going to keep going because I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, because I didn't start until 39, which was last year, only because I knew that this year I was turning 40, and it's again about the same age. I was about, I think my earliest memory of making someone laugh was in year 1. I was 6, and I don't remember what I said, but I remember going, "This is pretty good," and then just
I know what you said.
yeah.
I'm Sri Lankan. They went, you're Mexican. Stop mucking about.
Yeah, yeah. There's no such thing as Sri Lanka. So you're Indian. I actually had someone say that to me once. I said, I'm Sri Lankan. They go, oh, so you're Indian.
Oh, really?
No, no. It's
Oh,
Sri
wow.
Lankan. Yeah. I'm
I'm guessing that was in Australia.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was born here.
That wouldn't happen in England because
no.
we're aware of maps.
So when you were starting out, tell me about your process for finding material and writing jokes.
Well, my first gig was a collection of 4 years of ideas leading up to it. So I already had a set. I had 15 minutes because every time I thought of something, I started writing jokes at 19 and writing them down. So when I did my first gig, it was actually 4 years of work. Not 4 years hard work, but it was snippets of ideas and things I'd said that I thought were funny. And it was an amazing feeling finding out they were 4 years later. I watched Emo Phillips. I don't know if you know Emo, but he's a comic genius. And I watched him on TV, and the level of detail in his jokes, something I call a retrospective punch, whereas as you're laughing, you realise something that was said earlier is now funny. As you're laughing, if you're prepared to do the extra work, you're taking in the last 10 seconds and going, oh my God, that is now funny because I now realise that. And chewing on it, actually absorbing more than just that bit's funny.
Yeah.
Going, that bit's funny and that bit's funny. Oh, I'm overstimulated with ideas and thoughts. And I call it a happy explosion in your brain.
Yeah.
And when Emo did that to my brain, part of me was like, okay, I've got to start writing my ideas down. So it was Emo at 19, Harry Hill at 23. And so my process was, I didn't sit down to write jokes, and I still don't. I just collected funny thoughts and put them together.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that's that was my again, as speaking as someone who's still fairly new in the industry, that was my biggest question. I'm like, how do you just, I remember my first seeing Seinfeld, and he's very observational, and then moving on to Eddie Murphy, and I was like, how, very different styles, but I was like, how do these guys do this? And it's because it seems like such a jazz dance like they're doing on stage, and I like a lot of novices at that age I was like, well, they're just getting up and talking, like this is all it is. But I didn't realize the craft behind it, and to make it seem this conversational, off the cuff thing, like you talk about in your book, about how it needs to feel like you're having this conversation the first time.
Yeah.
Your process now from has it changed much than when you were first running? Obviously, in the book, you have these great phrases: the balloon pops, the ball and the cube, seesaw. Were these things that you sat down to figure out, or were things that existed that you gave a name to?
So the seesaw, so just to explain to the listener, the seesaw was something I discovered that I was writing for somebody, and I reworded one of their jokes, and they said, why did you change that? And I said, well, I suppose if a punchline has a pause in it, it makes more sense if there's more syllables at one side of the pause than the other. So that's why I call it the seesaw, because it's off balance. And I was doing comedy for 20 plus years before that occurred to me. So I was doing it instinctively. I count syllables in a book. I don't do that in real life. I'm showing you that ba-bum, dum lands better than dum dum.
Yeah.
It's that
Rhythm.
Yeah.
By the way, do you think that's why rim shot works so well afterwards? Yeah.
I'm. Someone pointed that out to me.
Yeah.
Bum bum doesn't work.
Yeah.
Bum doesn't work. Ba-dum, that is a seesaw.
But do you think that's why they use it? They used to use it in jokes.
Yes, instinctively. Yeah. I didn't invent the seesaw. I discovered it.
Yeah.
But there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right. I can claim the seesaw is something I discovered, whereas things like the ball and the cube. The thing is, the ball and the cube, which is harder to explain. I think I discovered that too, because a comedian will go, that joke stopped working. I don't know why it stopped working. And I've gone, well, that joke's a cerebral, short joke with no emotional mental images, strong mental images. And if you talk about, I'm going to go and blow up my ex-wife building, home, I'm going to da-da-da-da, and then boom. Then the emotion is the contempt, and the visual image is the explosion. That's not a cube. That's a ball, so it generates energy because a ball rolls. Cube stays still. If you tap a cube, it barely moves. You tap a ball, it rolls for ages. Let's say on an ice rink. So a ball hitting a cube means the cube gets pushed and rolls further, slides further. So what I discovered was that short cerebral jokes with no emotional, strong mental images are cubes and need to be treated well, and therefore you should never bring a cube in when there's energy low in the room, because they'll get this, it'll get this.
Yeah.
And if it gets nothing, the comedian comes backstage and goes, they didn't get that joke. I thought, oh really? How do you know what went on in 200 people's minds when you hit punchline? Isn't that coincidence 200 people all didn't get that joke the night before, 200 people all got it? That's not the odds are millions and millions. I mean, mathematicians probably go, no, it's billions. If it's 200 people, we're getting 200 people. The combination of those people sit in the right rooms. So what's happened is the audience got it, but they didn't laugh. Why? Because there's no energy. There's no ball pushing it.
Yeah.
You know that laugh that comes out of your gut when you go, whoa, like that.
Yeah.
You don't even choose to laugh. It just comes out. The best laugh, right? Just pours out of you. That's energy in the room. You don't get, when you're dying on stage, the reason you don't out of nowhere just get this roaring laugh is because there's no energy. There's no credit in the bank. So my discovery about balls and cubes is that I could describe in detail with bullet points in the book what a cube is. Comedians can read it and go, that explains what that.
Yeah.
And people have written to me and gone, I mean, hundreds of people have written to me and gone, I've resurrected a joke because I now realise it just needs some energy in the room for it to work. So there are comedians all over the world who instinctively would do that, but I've broken it down to what it is.
Yes.
So I didn't invent anything. I discovered things.
Well, and it's really helped comedians because I feel like giving it a name as well. I now will watch comedy and I'll go, oh, boom mic, balloon leak, and I'm immediately seeing it happen in real time, and it's giving it this real tangible sort of like I'm very aware of it now.
Right.
And so when you write a joke using these premises, using these what's the word? Tools. Do you often, even if you're not writing it down, even if it's thinking, do you think that's going to do okay? That's going to do really well. Are you that far along in your career now that you know something's going to completely land?
No. This is the fascinating thing. I was talking about this with Ant, my promoter, the other day. The audience will tell you, and you can get. I mean, you go. I've got a really good idea. I've got an idea. I wonder if this would work. But regularly, I'm surprised by the thing I'm not sure about working really well, and the thing I think is going to work not working. I had a joke about Kinder Surprises. We call them Kinder Eggs. That was in my consciousness for 8 years, and then one day the subject of chocolate came up from the audience, and I just did the line. The room fell about, and I was like, that was in my head for 8 years. I mean, I've even got longer. There's one 13 years is in my head. 13 years in my head. So when you try a line out, I suppose the moral of the story is try everything out. That's the moral of the story. But no, I'm constantly surprised when I try a bit out I think it's going to be huge, and it doesn't work at all. And the only benchmark for me is if I'm walking down the street when I think of it and I double up laughing, that's a really, really good sign.
Yeah.
In fact, that's my only 100% proof.
Yeah.
And guess how many times it's happened in 31 years?
How many?
5.
Yeah.
Right, but if I shock my own body by doubling and laughing a thought in my head, which is a beautiful thing, isn't it? You've given yourself that joy, just laugh rather than just, you might say a witty comment to your friends and they'll laugh and you sit back and watch them laugh. But when I shocked my body, 5 times. What's that? Every 6, 5 to 30, right? Every 6 years, I'm funny.
You consider it, yeah. And then so. What would you say, is there a bit that you just, how you, on the flip side of that, let's say you come up with something that you do believe is great, it's genius, and you've worked it and it doesn't ever work. Is there a time where you go, well, time to throw that out?
I think so. I think so. This is why the ball and the cube thing is so powerful, because people have written to me and gone, I gave it up after 5 times and now I brought it back and it works. That's a really satisfying feeling.
Yeah.
So, but given that I'm aware of balls and cubes, sometimes I change the way and tweak it. I just go, okay, just accept there's a gap between what I think is funny and what every audience thinks funny. If you do something in a good atmosphere, tweaked, and every time you do it, it's in a nice gig and everything was laughing, and they just stop laughing, there's something wrong with that joke that you can't see.
Yeah.
There are levels below what you can pick up on that are making it not work. And I think maybe, 5 times you've got to give up. There's one bit I took 6 rewrites of before it worked because I was so confident it was funny, but that was about controlling the energy and controlling the audience's breathing. I create this rush bit before it where they're like that, they're kind of, I'm just bombarding them, not giving them a chance to breathe, and then I hit the punchline. But that again, that's creating a ball to just force something through. But the line wasn't a cube. This is the thing, it wasn't a cube. It was an emotional joke about my parents splitting up when I was 5, and it was quite personal. And I think audiences just went, oh, and I just went, ah. And so that was 6 attempts, yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose if that means if I gave up after 5, maybe I was only 1 away.
Yeah.
But you don't. I don't want people listening to going, that's right, I'm never giving up, because you're going to have darn your ass for
You
10
have
years
to.
and go, I know 11 years in, Adam said there's a time. So I think there's a time you generally, but you've got to go, okay, it's not funny.
Yeah, but then you've got to, like, those people will need to be tweaking it, though, because I see, and I'm guilty of as well, I'm trying the same bit again and again and go, it's still not working, but I'm not changing anything. Like, you see the same people bombing with the same bit and they're not tweaking it.
Well, that's what that sign of man is doing the same thing again and again,
Insanity.
expecting different results. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would see new comedians when I was new have bad gigs, and every 5 times I saw them, they'd have a good gig, and they'd say they got it. And I go, this is a catastrophic approach. Everyone's wrong until an audience likes it, and they're right.
Right.
So they got it. So the problem is every audience apart from 1 in 6. Well, that's no way to make a living, and it's very delusional because, I mean, obviously there are people who do something a bit weird, and audiences will, there are people who do something so weird that audiences, as a new comedian who don't know who you are, will go, nah, right? And I accept that if you're doing something, the less generic what you're doing is, the more likely you are to have hit and miss gigs. But if you're having 1 in 6 gigs going well, you need to do something, such as force your weirdness on an audience till they buy it.
Yeah, and a lot of that you've talked about, like force your weirdness. So you're in the book as well. You talk about a stage persona. So how important is it to develop something, and how long would you say it takes to sort of develop a persona on stage that represents who you are as a comedian, to find your comic voice that represents yourself, and how much do you think the audience tells you who you are?
They do tell you. So there's only a handful of comedians I saw starting out that just were fully formed. Peter Kay, who's a stadium filling comedian, Ed Byrne, Sarah Millican, John Bishop, Simon Evans. So that's 5. Everyone else went through evolutionary stages. I wasn't myself on stage. I was trying to be Ben Elton and being very ranty. And then maybe 8 months in, I started to realise that wasn't my true clown.
Yeah.
I was more playful. And, gradually starting to smile more a couple of years in, I realised that when I smiled, my light shone and audiences saw my joy. So I was covering up a lot. I was still having good gigs. In fact, I was having great gigs because I was able to do something successfully, but it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And being yourself on stage, I mean, no one's 100% themselves on stage, but being myself, I'm myself on stage when I'm excited and in a good mood. And that frenetic energy is in me. It just, I allow it out on stage. So I would say people go through at least 2 stages of evolution to get to their final thing. And audiences do teach you. Now, there's a massive difference between pandering to an audience and the audience teaching you what's funny about you. They sound similar. You walk on stage and you make the audience laugh doing what they like. The difference is this. Pandering is going to different rooms and going, what do they like? What do they like? What do they like? I'll be what you want to be. Well, that's not art. But audiences, when you're new, teaching you what's funny about you is a magnet where every single audience, so that's not pandering, the public in general are teaching you what's funny about you. If a child touches a hot kettle and it burns them, they're never going near that kettle as long as they live. Hot or cold, they don't know what the power's on, power's off, steaming, not steaming. They just know that's where danger happens. Well, the reverse of that happens with you being funny, because you raise an eyebrow at the end of a joke that's a bit kind of subtle, and the audience go, oh yeah, we're with you on that one. You've learned that eyebrow raise works for you.
Yeah.
Well, some people it doesn't work for. Some people are completely what's the facial equivalent of monotone?
Deadpan.
Yeah. They, when a comedian learns that when they don't react, have you seen Have I Got News for You?
No.
So there's a comedian called Paul Merton who used to do stand-up. Now he sits down panels, and he's phenomenal. But he'll say something really, really witty, and rather than smile because he's pleased with himself, or try and look deadpan because he's pretending he's not pleased with himself, he looks away and frowns like he's confused himself. And I don't know why, but it makes it funnier. He's almost looking like, I don't know what happened then, a bit confused. And the juxtaposition between a brilliantly witty comment and him looking confused is so beautiful. I'm 100% sure he wasn't doing that from day one. But that thing of looking confused and away, confused, it's so powerful when he does it. I urge people to look up Paul Merton, Have I Got News for You? That is a found method for reacting to the audience laughing. I grin gleefully because I've often said something mischievous or playful, and when they laugh, I grin gleefully to celebrate that moment with them. There was a time in my career I didn't smile once. So I found my clown. But audiences teach you, because you go, just like the kettle, the reverse of the kettle is, when I do that, people laugh. But that's not pandering, it's being taught what's funny about you.
Yeah.
And it does sound like pandering, but it's not, because pandering is going to different rooms and reacting differently to suit different audiences, right? I'm excitable regardless of who I'm performing in front of. Go on.
No, I was going to say, do you think there's a psychology to it where, you know, how you sit and talk with someone, you smile and you nod, and they start smiling and nodding? Do you think there's something similar to that in the crowd? You know how some comedians will laugh at their own jokes on stage, and then the audience will laugh. I don't know if they're laughing because he's laughing, or do you think smiling like that just, because I'll do that as well. I'll smile, and I've been using the stage a bit more. I can walk up and down. I lean off the stage, and the more I do that, the more I see people sort of smiling up. I haven't said the punchline yet, but it's like they're anticipating it. Do you think there's a psychology there?
Yeah,
but following your lead.
But only if it works for you.
Yeah.
Yes, but you have the magic within you to make that happen. Some people look insincere, looks like they're trying too hard. I mean, I saw a guy on Johnny Carson, an old clip, and he did his first line, went like at the end, like to say, "Come on, let's all laugh together." And I switched off after 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought, wait a minute, so you're asking us to laugh with you at that joke? First of all, we know you've heard it before; it's material. So, yeah, I went to the airport. They go, and I went, okay, well, that was you insecurely encouraging us to laugh with you. I mean, almost laughing at your own jokes as a contrived part of your set is almost inevitably a sign of weakness, because you're going, it's funny, isn't it?
Right? Yeah.
Let's all laugh together. Yeah, I'm going to have a good gig. please. So I don't think laughing at your own jokes on the first line is fine. If I do improv, I've done improv that's gone, and I've surprised myself, and there's an audience laughing, I'll chuckle, and I think that's a nice thing, because you're sharing the experience with them. But I'm not going to stand on stage going, kill me. I mean, I've seen comedians laughing when the audience aren't laughing. Was that painful? They've paid to laugh, and you're the only one laughing. And by the way, your laughter when they're not laughing only highlights the fact they're not laughing. The only thing worse than no laughter is the comedian being the only one laughing.
Yeah, I think it's on par with the comedian getting no laughs and tapping on the microphone and saying, "Is this thing on?" But I want to talk about like bad habits that comedians get into when they're writing. I want obviously to talk about hack as well. So bad habits that comedians get into in writing, how they can avoid being a bad writing bad material, or what's a good exercise for comics to just mine for material.
So a bad habit for writing material is when a comedian does write something down how they think they'd say it, learns it verbatim, and then says it, and now they sound like a bad impression of themselves.
Yeah.
So I can spot that a mile off. So I went to the zoo the other day with a friend of mine known since school, and in real life you might go, "Oh, an old school friend of mine went to the zoo the other day," right? Now, if it's not natural to say the words the way you've written them, and you learn them verbatim, now you're memorizing a bad impression of yourself. So now you're almost looking like a clone on Zoom. That's not you. There's something wrong. When you're almost reading from an auto cue in your mind verbatim, and the words aren't natural to you, that's doubly unnatural. You've got unnatural words memorized and then recited, and now you've got this wooden thing on stage. So I would say if you tell stories, I mean, short jokes need to be meticulously worded, but if you're telling a story, maybe get the bullet points the first time, and then when you go on stage, freeform it so you know where you're going, but you choose the words freely leading up to the punchline that might be meticulously worded, and then each time you say it, it will gradually evolve into its final form, like a pebble on the beach finding its shape.
Yeah.
So I think memorizing verbatim words that didn't sound natural in the first place is the worst way you can possibly tell a story. And if there are people listening to this go, "But what else can I do?" Well, bullet points is one.
Yeah.
Go on stage and improvise it. And if people go, "I can't improvise on stage," okay, go on stage with the bullet points. Or if you really don't feel comfortable doing that, record yourself saying it naturally and then write it down.
So then, how would you, like, let's say someone hasn't gone up at all, and they're going, how do I, like, you know, I really try and exercise as part of my brain to have this comedic sort of thing in my head turned on. So I'm always waiting and to notice things throughout the day that I can turn into material. So how, for someone who's hasn't gotten up yet and they want to come up with 5 minutes, Like, would you say just write stuff about their lives, almost like a journal entry, or would you say just get out there and notice things?
If you sit down to write and you find it laborious and hard work and not enjoyable, try a different method.
Yeah.
So despite me writing 17 chapters on writing material, I get my material walking down the street or in conversation. I say something funny and I go, ooh. Or someone will go, oh, here's an interesting one. Someone will go, oh, how about that as a joke? And it goes through three questions in my head. Does it suit my persona? Does it remind me of anything I've heard before, as in is it original? And could anyone have thought of it? Could anyone have thought of it is... A girl came up to me after a gig and she said, I really enjoyed you and you, but the girl that's left, so she didn't sit in front of her, I just felt she was saying sort of thoughts I have in the shower. Well, you don't want to pay money for having shower thoughts. You want to pay money for someone's very good shower thoughts or
a twist on them.
Yeah.
Listen,
if a genius has shower thoughts, then they're great. They're genius thoughts. My point is, you don't want people thinking, I thought that before. Observations are about, I thought that before. Observations are, I thought that before, but I hadn't noticed until you pointed it out. Whereas an original idea, you don't want the audience going, I've had that original idea myself, because then it's not an original idea. So I think that, so with regard to coming up with ideas, if you keep, I mean, we're in the smartphone era, but if you keep a notes page open on your phone with new material written at the top, and every time you have an idea, you write it down.
Yeah.
If you're on your journey to doing your first gig, just put your antenna out and look for everything. You're your most prolific in your first year, by the way,
right?
Because you're living and breathing it. You haven't come off your high, and you don't have a persona yet, almost inevitably. So you're trying out everything.
Yeah.
But when I go, does it suit my persona? The answer is no. That's it.
Yeah.
Not going to go in. But it's too obvious. Okay, it's not going in. Could anyone thought? Does it remind me of anything I heard before? Yeah, it's a bit like that. So that 3-question thing, you don't ask yourself when you just try everything. So then the audience will start to teach you what's you.
Yes.
But I mean, if you walk to work every day, 5 times a week and back, and you start noticing things that you hadn't noticed before, that's going to be easier to do the first 5 times than after 6 months because nothing's changed. This is why topical comedy is easier than it looks, because a woman gets poisons her family with mushrooms, everyone's thinking about mushrooms. Whereas if you're walking to work and it's the same view every day, you have to look at the trees, the leaves, the kids, the pavement to think of something new. Whereas when you're new and you start looking for jokes because you're trying to, I don't mean literally staring around, but just having your antenna open.
Yeah.
So that when you walk down the street and a leaf falls off a tree and it hits you on the arm, and you think, oh, that tree hit me, that's a bit like, and then you make a connection between the leaf and the shop next to it and the title of the shop. Yeah, bam, got it.
Yeah, cool.
And those moments happen, I think, more often when you're new, as a combination of obsessing over your new passion and not having those 3 questions.
Because you're desperate to have material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even use desperate as a word. I'd say keen.
Yeah. So what do you think keeps a comedian going? Like, obviously there's people that come in and out. I know there's guys in the industry that I see once every couple of months, and they've said to me, I do it once every couple of months. I don't really want to pursue it that much. It's just for fun, but they're not developing anything. What do you think separates the people that are like keen, desperate to keep going from the people that...
Well, there's a couple of things.
Yep.
First of all, if you're making a good living doing something else, it's less tempting because you go, wait a minute, I'm going to have to do this for 5 years to make anywhere near what I'm earning now. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm very happy with my... If you like your job and it pays well, it's very hard to then travel around the country earning peanuts to hopefully one day earn more than you earn. And the other thing is, if it's not fully in their blood, like during my first gig, I remember thinking my whole life makes sense now.
Yeah.
Like everything I was doing up till now was me showing off because I could do this.
Yeah.
And now I found out I can, or could do this is wrong, showing off because I think I can do this. I was a comedian in the making for so long, such as the 4 years writing jokes. And now it's like, oh, now it explains why I'm like that at dinner parties. It's just this thing inside me that's burning to get out, and now it's out. So on stage at my first gig, I was going, this is my place. I was hitting the punchlines like a baseball bat with balls coming towards me, going there, now. I was seeing, I haven't since that day, I haven't had that. I was seeing balls coming towards me and a baseball bat in my hand. That was what I was visualizing, and I haven't had that since that day. And that means it was my vocation. And there's nothing wrong with having a hobby. You know, amateur comes from the French word amour, for love. An amateur does something because they love it. Well, isn't that beautiful to do something because you love it? You get on stage for no money or very small amounts of money, maybe a paid 10 in a small club, and you go home to your family or your friends and you go, I did a gig tonight. How'd it go? Really well. And then you get up in the morning, you do your day job. I don't look down on those people. What a beautiful thing. It's just for me, bear in mind I had nothing else as well, but it was like someone coming out the closet to their family. It's like, I'm a comedian, this is it.
Yeah.
Right? So there was no turning back for me.
Yeah.
But I don't look down on someone who feels they're dipping in. I don't understand how you can get the buzz of a good gig and then go and not do it anymore.
Yeah, I think that's where. Yeah, I think I'm going through a bit of a pinch me kind of thing now. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. You know, like, I think rewind 5 years ago, and I was working retail. I was doing sales, pretty miserable. And then now all I'm doing is creative stuff. So I play music, I act, and I'm doing comedy, and I teach acting. And it's just I'm rotating around all these things that I really enjoy doing. And it wasn't an overnight thing. It was such a gradual thing that I didn't realize that I had swapped out all this miserable stuff that I was doing with stuff that I'm truly passionate about. And comedy, I get the odd paid gig here again because I'm not a professional comedian. But even then, when I get someone contact me and say, "Do you want to do a paid spot here?" I'm like, "Holy shit, I'm a comedian!"
Great.
You know what I mean? Wonderful. Do you think that obviously we're in a comedy boom at the moment? Why do you think so many people are signing up? Is it because it's made to look so easier than it is?
Yes, it is.
Or where comedians are the new rock stars? That kind of sort of theory.
It's made to look easier than it is. That's the thing about stand-up. By making it look easier when it's actually very hard, you make other people think they can do it.
Yeah.
Then they get up on stage and go, "Oh, it's not that easy." There are some things in the arts that look harder than they are. I'm not going to mention them. But stand-up is, I think, the thing that looks the easiest when done well, and is the hardest, really, with regard to getting good reactions.
Yeah.
By the way, it's harder to write a song that's memorable for the rest of time than it is to tell an okay joke and get a laugh. I'm not saying one art form's harder. What I mean is to get a good reaction. You know, if you learn to play the guitar and you stand in the corner of the room playing the guitar adequately, the people, when you get to the end of the song, they will applaud. They're drinking, they're ignoring you, and even though they're listening and they think this isn't great, they'll still applaud. You do not get laughter being unfunny. Applause happens at the end of a track.
Yeah.
There might be people listening go, "No, I play the track, they ignore me at the end of the track." Okay, there's levels of it being ignored, but you do not laugh at the end of a joke you don't find funny because it's a guttural reaction. And you might get polite laughter, but nice crowd, but you can sense that it's cringy, you feel patronised.
Yeah.
It's a very hard art form to do consistently well in because there are so many factors making it hard to be funny.
Yeah. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. I was at a gig. I do like a whole loop pedal one-man band thing. And I for some reason, when people applaud at music gigs, I'm like, stop. Just it's weird because there's one person going like a golf claps in the corner, and then someone else will join in out of politeness. I'm like, stop, I don't need it. I'm fine to be background noise. Yeah, right. But the difference, and then sometimes they'll cheer and applaud if it's a real big song, but then nothing compares to like, and Ant will behind the camera will agree to this, and you like a room full of people, stadiums. / 10, 20 people.
I've done. Let me think about it. I've done 4 gigs in stadiums in my life.
Yeah, but but that laughter, like I don't think anything compares to something that you've put words in a specific order, eliciting cheers and laughter and applause, and nothing feels like it.
It was an amazing feeling.
Yeah,
and I'm still addicted to it 30 years in.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that in my opinion, that's what should keep most comedians going, is that addiction to sort of chasing that, feeling of applause. I've got one more, avoiding hack quickly, but avoiding hack. What's your advice to someone who's starting out and going like, this sounds like a joke?
So there are some people whose quality bar is, does it sound like a joke and does it work? And they're completely oblivious to the fact, or they choose to ignore the fact that it sounds like something very similar. They're happy to go, look, I've made a joke and it works. But you go, that's a very slippery slope because I've seen people come off stage really pleased with themselves, and I'm like, do you realize how derivative everything you
Yeah.
said was. And then you get people, oh, there's only 7 jokes in the world. Well, come on. There's only 26 letters in the alphabet. Does that mean it's not worth writing a new book? 8 notes in an octave.
Yeah.
No new tunes? Is it not worth writing a tune? Well, all the tunes have been done, all the jokes have been done. They haven't.
Yeah.
Very original people create new things. It's ingredients. You know, new meals with ingredient existing. There's only the herbs and spices out there.
Yeah.
Put new things together, make something that tastes new.
Yeah.
Right? Different cuisine from different countries tastes completely different because they're using different things differently.
Yeah.
So I think that what's important is when a new comedian is getting laughs, they should say to their peers, does this seem original? Because you need another comedian to tell you that it could be better. You know, there's getting laughs and there's being original.
Yeah.
And what you want is to get laughs being original. And some people, I don't care, as long as the audience are happy. That will often only take you so far. Because the bookers will go, they did well, but it's really hacky.
Yeah.
And there are bookers that would rebook the person who got an 8 out of 10 gig and not book the hacky one who got a 10 out of 10 gig because they can see through it. You know, some bookers go, okay, all I care is my punters are happy. But there are bookers that actually have the artistic integrity to block people who are not being very original.
Yeah.
So I think that I did the masterclass on Saturday in Perth, and one of the comedians in the group said, I got this joke, here it is. I just think it feels a bit obvious. And I said, well, that's beautiful that you're doing that because it is a bit obvious, but it is funny.
Yeah.
But it's got the formula of his brain went, I've heard this before in other forms. Different words but the same trick.
Yeah.
Tricks is the word, right?
Yeah.
A good comedian creates their own tricks. And a generic comedian doesn't even consider the trick.
You like stand up? Close up magic as well. I forgot to tell you that I've taught myself a myriad of like close up magic tricks over the years. Yeah,
yeah. That's my hobby is close up magic. And again, I don't want to be a professional magician. So if a professional looked down at me because I didn't have the guts to do it, I'll be like, no. I have my career. It's my flying a kite. My close up is my flying a kite.
Yeah.
That's my thing for me.
Well, that's my music for me. I think it's just like the enjoyable sort of it's therapeutic. I like it. And then
do you know why music's your flying a kite? Because you're on your own and no one's looking over.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the last thing I want to do at the end of all these is, can we work on a bit?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So
As long as it's mine.
So I've got I've got tons of stuff that isn't working. But one I've got is a bit about couples arguing, right? The idea is that all couples argue, and all arguments start the same way, with someone being passive aggressive. But I think that they end the opposite way, with someone being aggressively passive. There's one person coming in, standing in the doorway, but not coming into the bedroom and saying, "I'm making a sandwich. Do you want a sandwich?" Just all, and then. So the idea I had was that, and then come the apologies, it's like, I'm sorry I called you a little bitch. I'm sorry I said your tits hang down to your muffin top. And yeah, my wife gets really mean when we fight. That's all I've got so far. But I'm trying to, it's not, I know it sounds, and it also sounds a little bit like easy, like the switch, but that it's meant to be, you're meant to think that it's me saying that to my wife. I'm sorry, but it turns out it's her saying it to me.
Right, so the reveal, let's use that word reveal again.
Yeah.
The reveal that it's you with a hit second down the muffin top, that's a really hacky method.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Guess what? I've got a belly.
Yeah.
So I've got a problem with that. I think the premise itself is great, and I don't think you need to put some hacky twists of, oh, it's me!
Yeah.
In the middle of it. Because I think that not only is hacky, it clouds the actual premise you're trying to set up.
Yeah.
You're distracting us with a cheap slap in the face.
Yes.
Can you go through, because I like the, what does aggressively passive mean?
So he comes, one person comes into the room.
I get the passive aggressive, but what's aggressively
passive? So they come in and they're offering something really nice aggressively. So like, I'm making a sound. Oh, I guess that is passive aggressive.
Yeah,
well.
that's where it fails, because I actually thought at the beginning that's the passive aggressive. Do you want a sandwich means, look, passive aggressive obviously is spoken gently.
Yeah.
So that's not technically passive, but I'm making a sandwich. Do you want one?
Yeah, he says it aggressively.
So that's. But you said it starts off passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And then you started off aggressive passive.
Yeah.
So then my brain, if you give me a square plug and tell it fits in that round hole, right? I'm going to try and make it fit, right? But that's wrong. he said it fits, it will fit another way. So you said starts off passive aggressive, ends up aggressive passively. Then you started off aggressive passively. I went, yeah, I suppose that kind of catches passive aggressive. So
yeah.
you forced me to make sense of that. So already you've got it in the wrong order.
Yeah.
So what you could say is arguments start off aggressive and end up passive aggressive, or arguments start off aggressive, or even aggressively passive and end up passive aggressive. But the cloudy bit there is at the very beginning I tried to make sense of it and did, and by the end of it you've done a cheap pullback and reveal.
Yeah.
I was doing that, no, that, and then I'm lost by the end of it. So I think you want to get rid of the hacky bit, primarily because it's hacky, and secondly because it's not needed to cloud us in the bit that to keep the camera on what's going on rather than go, hey, I got tits. So if we look at it, it starts off passive aggressive.
Yeah.
So why don't you end specifically with you being aggressive? But starts off passive aggressive. Give me a passive aggressive thing you'd say in an argument with your wife. Are you married?
Yeah. I can't even think of anything. Oh, I guess I'll make my own coffee. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like that's passive aggressive. Oh, I guess I'll do the dishes. You know, that kind of thing. Not that I say that to my wife, but you know, that's only I can. I guess I'll cook again today.
Only because you have a dishwasher.
I guess I'll cook every day. I guess you know.
So what? Give me a situation that was. First of all, you got to say something. She's got to say something for you to respond passively aggressive too. You can't cut to the middle of a conversation. So, I find. By the way, I'm trying to spin this round because we can keep it the original way.
Yeah.
But you have to say something passive aggressive at the beginning, and what does she say first? So I've noticed. I mean, as a premise, you know, Chris Rock does like this when he goes, "This is the premise. Women can go up in lifestyle, they can't go down in lifestyle," and he repeats it, so it drums it into your mind.
Yes.
So we go, "This is the point.
Women love to shop. They love to shop. Women love to shop."
Is that from the Nutty Professor?
Yeah, I think so.
So there's a comedian called Julian Barrett who you might know from the Mighty Boosh.
Yeah.
And I was on tour with him and a comedian called Gordon Southern. We were travelling the whole country, and we were somewhere up north. We got the afternoon free, so we went to see Nutty Professor. And there's like 12 people in the cinema, and Eddie Murphy's character is the larger professor of the two. He's in the audience with his date, and Dave Chappelle comes on as this Reggie and he goes, "Women, they be shopping. You can't stop a woman from shopping." And Eddie Murphy goes, "That's true, you do shop." That's true, you do shop. I love you do shop. And these three comedians collapsed with this beautiful satirization of observational comedy. And the rest of the cinema was looking like, why did all three of them find that 100 times funnier than everyone in the cinema put together? But it was like, you know, you do shop. But that back to your thing. So I've noted, and this has to be true to you, what have you noticed about arguments? Do they start aggressively passive or end passive aggressive, or the other way around?
No, I think they do start passive. I think passive aggressive.
So that is your observation. That can't change.
Yeah,
that's what you believe. So you have to start off with the passive aggressive. So yeah, I've had a bit of a tense day with my wife, and I say, let's say I've just got back from work or whatever. And she's had the day off, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll make my own coffee. Do you want one? And then the "do you want one's the passive aggressive because you obviously already said, would you like a coffee? Because no one's making me one. Right? Yeah. That's passive aggressive. So you choose a word in that. Then it escalates. So what does she say back? And then it has to have a turning point where she's passive aggressive back. Yeah. I mean, two people passive aggressive to each other is such an ugly combination because what they're doing is they're locking antlers, and neither of them bold enough to admit they're locking antlers. I know someone who's passive aggressive to me. I find it cowardly because I'd rather you just said to me, "I didn't like what you just did," and I can say, "Okay, I'm sorry," or I can justify what I do. But when they're passive aggressive, they're under the surface. They're little punches you can't see coming. So if you're doing it back to each other, it's so ugly. So I think you could build up maybe 3 passive aggressive comments back in a row where it's getting really tense. Then one of you kind of breaks it and acknowledge it. Then you both acknowledge the situation, as in the gloves. The punches down there now become higher up, so at least we can see we're punching each other, and then it gets aggressive because you don't like what they're saying, and it ends up now aggressively passive. Can you qualify that as a phrase?
The idea came from this idea where I'm this character in the story is trying to make up, but it's still on the tail end of this fight, so I'm still feeling quite aggressive, but I'm trying to give a olive branch. So I'm like, I'm making a sandwich. Do you want a sandwich? It's like a weird thing to offer aggressively. Like I'm making food. Do you want some? I'm making a sandwich. Do you want one? And then she's like crying
Got it. Okay.
So I just thought,
sense of resentment in
yeah, it isn't. It meant the idea that he's saying this nice thing. I'm offering to make up and
Right.
get back on track, but he's still saying it so aggressively.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so what I would do is I would say, I've noticed a lot of arguments, particularly with couples, start off passive aggressive, gradually change to just an argument, and end up aggressively passive.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard that phrase. Did you make that phrase up?
aggressively passive.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So that's right. So I would do an act out, an elaborate act out, passive aggressive, her response back. But this is all about the writing now, and of course the performance. But it's
Yeah.
about the structure, and then it gradually changes. You could say, okay, this is where the passive leaves,
yeah,
and it's just aggressive.
Yeah.
That's the middle stage.
yeah, cool.
And here comes, so it's building. We're laughing, and here comes a turning point from passive aggressive to just aggressive to aggressive passive. Well, do you want a sandwich or not?
Yeah.
And that's the boom. That's the pop.
Yeah.
But I would say you say it goes from that to that, but of course in the middle there's that. You do the act out, it's getting really tense. Then they're arguing. Then it solves it. I'm going to get a sandwich, and then you scream on a sandwich. But I would still prefix it at the end with, and this is where it gets aggressively passive.
Yeah.
And that's boom. So I think you narrate it.
Yeah, and follow. So, because then I guess you could have like every line could have some kind of punch. At the end of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is but what's nice about like writing a joke is really hard. Telling a story is easier because you already have what happened to
Yeah.
write down and then add jokes to. What you have now is you have an agenda, and you know that phrase "necessity is the mother of invention."
Yeah.
You have a necessity to write an argument about
Yeah.
that has 3 stages. But I like the fact that it ends in aggressively passive because that's your phrase.
Yeah.
So the observation is it goes from passive aggressive, then just an argument, and then you shout. But you've used the turn of phrase aggressively passive.
That's how the idea came.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. But the way you presented it to me was dog shit.
That's not the first time Adam Bloom's told me my jokes are bullshit.
but here's the thing. But I like the idea.
Yeah.
So you've now got to go back and make that good.
Yeah.
But I like the idea.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm looking forward to seeing it.
No, good.
But you have the bones. But I think it's be very interesting to write passive aggressive comment and a passive aggressive response and a passive aggressive, and you go, no one's admitting they're arguing, but they both are.
Yeah.
But then there's a turning point when one of you admits it. Well, if because that's quite a nice observation.
Yeah.
Passive aggressive, passive. I had an argument with someone once, and I didn't know him as well as the other person in the room, and they're back passive aggressive, and then they broke it and went, "Look, Adam," and then they called it right.
Yeah.
So they broke character because passive aggressive is pretending you're not arguing when
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
So they broke character, which was a good thing. They were like, "Look, let's just admit we're arguing now." Then the argument started.
Yeah.
Right, so we came out from under the surface of an argument, had the argument, and then it blew up, and we had a big row.
Yeah.
But I quite like the idea that row's not we didn't shout at each other, we had an argument, but that middle stage of admitting you're arguing, and then the final stage, of course, is aggressively passive. We're like, yeah, well, do you want a sandwich or not?
Yeah.
And that moment, that's where it pops.
And you think that's punchline
That's
pop?
punchline,
balloon
but
pop?
what would be great is if we forget there's a sandwich involved. Let's say the beginning was about a sandwich, and went away, and they argued about, maybe the trip to the supermarket when you flirt with the girl behind the counter, getting the bread to buy the sandwiches,
Yeah.
and make the sandwiches, and all the ingredients, and then it ends up with by the time it's argued, we've forgotten it's about sandwich, and then
Yeah.
that slaps us back. So that final bit is you've said aggressively passive. We've now seen the journey leading up to it. We've forgotten the topic sandwiches because it's tangented, and that brings us back. That's how
Yeah.
I would do it.
Yeah, because I think you saw the bit that I did, and I like this structure. Is the joke where my wife is having a conversation about having a baby, and I think it's about having a threesome. So I like that every line is this misunderstanding,
Right.
and then the audience gets to put that together in their head, and they get to put the connections of
Got it.
going, oh yeah, this works for both.
Right.
And I was thinking that you could do the same thing for with this passive aggressive one, where each line is something, not a misunderstanding maybe, because there's no real misunderstanding premise here, but something where it's like it's elicits some recognition of an argument that someone's had at home with their
Right.
and then but then just so you think just end with something about the sandwich.
It would be nice if it starts off with a sandwich and we forget it's about sandwich
Yeah.
when they argue. Because also, arguments are often about something else, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, when a couple have been married 60 years says, "Can you pass the salt?" And
Yeah.
it's an argument about them not passing the salt. They put the salt there rather than there. I can't reach it. It's not about salt, is it?
Yeah.
That's a metaphor for much bigger things that have happened. So when you have an argument about who put the rubbish out, it's not about who put the rubbish about. It's about who forgot to pay that bill and you got fined for it.
Yeah.
So the small thing represents a bigger thing. So I quite like the idea that it starts with a sandwich and it unfolds why the sandwich is a problem, and then by the time we've got to the real problem, we've forgotten sandwiches exist, and then that's where the surprise of the word sandwich comes back. We go, it's like when you woke up, it was all a dream. I'm back to the sandwiches.
Yeah.
So that's some structure I would give it, but I like the premise. But the way you started off was already confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to keep it shorter, like, you know, without, I didn't even consider that there could be layers and levels to it, where it could be a full anecdote.
I see a 3-minute routine.
Yeah.
I see a 3-minute routine with that round of applause, and I'm not a fan of that round of applause when the audience just applaud the fact you've remembered something. They'll do that if it's just average.
Yeah.
But if you do it because it's good, then they're applauding two things: you've memorized a long bit, and it's beautifully structured.
Yeah.
So if you get to the end before the big payoff and they applaud, that's a nice moment when they've celebrated your journey, and then you've got the baseball bat ready for the topper, bang, crashing back to the original subject, and that's aggressive back. But I would still say, and here's where the aggressive bit passive comes in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they've forgotten that, and you're going, why is she shouting? So you need to tee up
Yeah.
the final bit by reminding what the premise
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. So halfway through, I go, and here, by the way, here's where
Yeah.
it starts to get aggressively passive.
And just a throwaway, by the
Yeah,
way. I
and-
wouldn't even do any. I don't know, just.
Yeah.
But I would even go, and here comes the aggressive passive bit.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
And then we realised that every couple in the audience relates to an argument.
Yeah.
It's observational comedy, but it's with your specific premise, which is why I mentioned Chris Rock, because Chris Rock does observations, but they are framed with his own philosophy. You know, I've never heard someone say women can go up in lifestyle, they can't go down in lifestyle. And that, now it seems a bit dated and sexist. Why can men go up in lifestyle, not down in lifestyle? But nonetheless, in his observation, it's about women.
Yeah.
So I think your thing is arguments go from passive aggressive to aggressively passive. I think when you do that back and forward, it gets really tense. And then there's a moment when one of you breaks and admits it's happening.
Yeah.
That's a nice observation, and then you have an argument.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should go from passive aggressive to straight aggressively passive, because you're missing out. Probably the most interesting bit is when a conversation breaks from low, subtle digs to someone admitting,
Yeah.
let's just be honest. We're arguing. And I think that's a very interesting observation. I've never seen anyone do that.
Yeah.
But I remember one specific argument I had in Amsterdam where it was with a friend's wife, and I knew him 100 times better than her, and we were passively aggressive digging, and she called it.
Yeah.
And once you called it, then you could have a proper row because no one's hiding behind
Yeah.
a screen. And I think passive aggressive is I think it's a really cowardly way. And you might go, well, you had it. Yeah, we had it because one of us said one thing and we stayed under the rug. But I avoid passive aggressive at all costs. I think it's much better to be aggressive with someone so they know where they stand with you.
Yeah.
You go,
So you.
can you not do that? Have it not crossed your mind that that's really quite disrespectful what you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're right. No, I don't. Okay, we have an argument. But that kind of boom. I know somebody very well who's not by choice, but because they're in my peripheral of my life, and they do it all the time. And it's like you're just chucking punches under the table.
Yeah.
You know,
So you have no problem with confrontation.
I don't like confrontation. My personal thing with confrontation is, you push me, I'll swallow it. You push me, I'll swallow it.
Yeah.
And then eventually I'll snap.
Yeah.
So I've got like a long fuse and a massive bomb.
Yeah.
But I haven't got a short fuse.
Yeah.
But my point is with passive aggressive is often a cowardly way of telling something you don't know what they're doing. Because I have to read between the lines.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a nice way to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, the word's aggressive. That's the word.
Yeah, that's it.
At least be honest. By the way, you don't have to shout. You can say, "Look, Adam, I've asked you not to touch that. You keep touching it. It costs £400. Please don't touch it."
Yeah.
That's not aggressive, but it's certainly confrontational.
Yeah.
So passive aggressive is confrontation veiled as nothing.
Yes.
And I don't like that.
Yeah, and I guess like in that bit as well, it'll start like you're doing. It'll force people to think of I remember the same situation with my partner, spouse, or whatever, of them being passive aggressive. So I mean, hopefully it's relatable enough
Yeah.
to click. Anyway, I'll take up a lot of your time, but that's
Not at all,
it for
not
now.
at all.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Finding Your Comic Genius is available on Amazon. If I'm not mistaken, in the first week, it sold like 5,000 copies.
Not quite.
Nearly.
Where'd you get that from?
Google search? It was like an AI search.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Yes, it did. Yes, sure did. But yeah, at any level, at whatever level of comedian you are, if you're looking to learn more about joke writing as a craft, or if you're looking at taking your existing jokes to the next level, this has everything you need. I know many comedians who are bragging about reading it more than once. 2 or 3 times, in fact. Adam Bloom Comedy on Instagram. Follow his stuff. He's amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And see you next time.